Tunisia is a very special place. It's located on the north of Africa, on the Mediterranean coast, and we have traveled from the north to the south, to the east, to the west. There's so much history, culture. It's a mosaic of people.
We have to harvest the olives in the best maturity. And this best maturity is when olives is half green, half dark. When you go to the supermarket, you can find many types of olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin first cold pressed, refined olive oil, pure olive oil, pomace olive oil. But the best quality is extra virgin first cold pressed. Here we make this quality. The second criteria is to harvest by hand, because to have the best maturity we cannot do it by machines. The third criteria is the time that we spend between land and mill. This time must be very, very short. When we receive a quantity at, for example, at 8 o'clock, it must be there.
Access the filters and the juice goes in vats. Yeah. So when inside we find this type of stone with this carving, we understand we are dealing with an olive press. It happens we have batteries, hundreds of them in the countryside, like in Spitla region. The olive groves disappeared, but these remains show that central Tunisia was covered with thousands, millions of olive trees, and it was one of the main exports of the country in the Roman and Byzantine time.
These products have been produced from olive oil.
Gabinius Felix, and he says in the inscription which was running above this colonnade that this cost him 400,000 sesterces, which was a huge sum in that time. He offered that to the city. In that time, if you earned the 400,000, you could become an equestrian. So he donated that. More than that, he says that he offered a banquet to the whole town and curtains which were not included in the word when he ran for elections. This could take 3,500 spectators. The whole town counted not more than 8,000 inhabitants, and it was chiseled out of the hill. And they went to their seats, which were the closest to the stage, while the middle and class and the plebeians went from the top, because it is chiseled out of the hill. So this takes you to the orchestra, which is the space between the cavea, which is the seats, and the proscenium, which was the stage. So as a Roman theater, it's semicircular, not like the Greek, which was chiseled in a hill, but almost round. You have a half-circular cavea. The cavea is the seats, subdivided in three classes. You have the first maenianum for the wealthiest, and separated from the second by the balteus, the balustrade, and there is a third maenianum for the plebeians, slaves, and the women. This was about 15 meters high and topped by a portico called the summa cavea, where those who didn't find seats or places could stand and watch. The public came from behind, the street which is behind, through 5 doors. And this could be covered by a big piece of sheet called velum. The orchestra, usually in the Greek theater, was of course circular, and it's in the orchestra that the actors performed in the Greek theater. While in the Roman this was no more used, and it was sometimes used to put armchairs for the important guests. And then in the Roman theater, you find the proscenium that we don't find in the Greek, which is elevated about 1 meter high, separated from the orchestra by a wall decorated with semi-round and squared niches. This is called the pulpitum. And behind the stage, we find a double colonnade, which was as high as the cavea. So you have to imagine this building like a big pool where the acoustic was very efficient. You can drop a coin here, and those who are at the top can hear the voice of the noise. Actors came through 3 conventional doors, which had different meanings for the spectators. Whether you came from that or that door, this meant you came from the town. From out of the town could be from another province, from the imperial palace. And the actors put on masks, which were conventional. They could understand you are playing the role of a messenger, say you are sweating, running, so your face is red. They had very high shoes so that they could be easily seen by the spectators. Of course, they performed the tragedy, so Greek and Latin, but mostly comic shows because the locals had not really a high education to be able to understand the Greek or Latin tragedy. So these were much more comic shows, mimes and pantomimes. So here you have the main temple of the city. Every Roman town had to have a Capitolium dedicated to Jupiter, Juno and Minerva, built on top of a podium.
Behind me is a Roman temple and duga.
You can see from the doorway the center of the house. The Romans were snobbish and they liked to show off. Here in Africa, the Romans inherited the concern about privacy, inherited from the Carthaginians. So when this is the doorway, and in front of you, you have a wall. You have to turn right and pass through another doorway to find the center of the house, which means you can keep your guest at the entrance and not let him meet with your family. So the house of Ulysses, which gave many beautiful mosaics, displayed in the Body Museum. So this is the biggest room in this bath, so the Frigidarium. So the customers ended with this room, and they spent the longest time. Therefore, in fact, it's the most embellished space. You look at the bottom of the walls, for instance, you see that these walls were covered by marble slabs. You see here, the marble was stolen happily. So this was running along the wall. So every time you look at the bottom of the walls, you can see the type of marble that was stripped off. And of course, this room was decorated with statues that were located in the niches, and it had pools full of fresh water.